Good evening and welcome to St. Peter's Hoe for our next step through St. Mark's Passion narrative. We now get to the bit in chapter 15 where the crowd approaches Pilate because, in expectation of the fact he's going to release a prisoner for them, he says, "Do you want me to release Jesus, the King of the Jews?" They said, "Not this man, but Barabbas." "Well, what shall I do with your king? Crucify him, crucify him." Now, there's quite a few problems with this. First of all, we're faced with the fact that the St. Mark is not writing history. He's writing sacred history. He's writing about Jesus. So we were told, now a man called Barabbas was then in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the uprising. What uprising? He had committed murder. Well, what do you mean exactly? Who had he murdered? And who was this Barabbas? What was his background? We don't know. It's just not considered interesting by St. Mark. It's just considered Barabbas is a criminal who is condemned to death. And then, of course, what happens is something quite extraordinary happens. The crowd decide, and Pilate gives in to the crowd. The crowd decides to crucify an innocent man, and the crowd cries that the guilty man who deserves to be crucified should be released. Now, one of the things that appeals to me is this idea that Barabbas is sitting in the condemned cell, feeling pretty sorry for himself, facing the horror of crucifixion. Somebody comes and opens the door. Barabbas feels his guts turn to ice, thinking, "This is it, they're taking me away to be crucified." And the Roman says to Barabbas, "Okay, you can go. You've been released." And Barabbas says, "What? Yeah, you've been released." And Barabbas, being obviously quite a sensible person, immediately leaves, making sure, and runs, making before they change their mind. So it's quite a dramatic little scene. And of course, it's appealed to filmmakers and people like that, and novelists and so on and so forth, particularly in the 19th century. Who was Barabbas? He was a bad man. What did he do afterwards? Having been saved by Christ, what did Barabbas do? Did he then go on to live a good life, thanks to the grace of God? And of course, the usual decoration of the Barabbas story is that eventually he is crucified, but he's crucified as a Christian martyr. That, I think, is a famous film about that, which I think I saw when I was about 10 years old. Can't quite remember all the details, but it did stay with me. So Barabbas is just, if you like, a wonderful little vignette. Bad man, redeemed by Christ, saved by Christ, who then, we hope, goes on to be a good man and eventually pays back the debt by dying for Christ. But of course, St. John doesn't really take this. What happened next? Not interested. St. John's not interested. He's only interested really in the central figure of Jesus. But Barabbas is a powerful figure to us of humanity in need of redemption. Anyway, I'll just leave that with you there about Barabbas. You can imagine to yourself what happened to Barabbas next. You can ask yourself, to what extent am I Barabbas? I am a condemned man. I should be punished because of my sins. But God, in his goodness, has redeemed me through the love of his Son, Jesus Christ. All the best. We'll continue on this little theme of the Barabbas interlude in tomorrow's step through the gospel. Bye for now.